this call.
I know, I thought that too.
The
So
squad
proud
is
of
out
my
here.
proud of my flyover state. The Ohio State, I saw people around, but it's okay too.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing.
Maybe we should introduce ourselves first. Rich, do you
Oh,
think?
that's a great idea. So this is the Campus Research Computing Consortium Emerging Centers call for January 18th, 2023, and we're talking about CC Star Planning Awards. I'm Rich Knepper from Cornell University.
And I'm Jane Combs from the University of Cincinnati, and we're the co-coordinators for the People Network of Emerging Centers community. And Emerging Centers, I think it might, I'm not sure if it's on that slide, but Emerging Centers means pretty much everybody that's from the one individual faculty member who's trying to help other people use computing tools to centers that we have representatives from some of the big centers come here too, because we're all learning new things all the time. So this is it's a great place to meet some of your colleagues and hear what other people are doing in our community.
Okay, and go ahead and, oh dear, I clicked on the link by accident, sorry. Can people see a slide with many things appearing?
Yes.
Now? Okay, great. I'm doing it right finally. So this is a little introduction to Campus Research Computing Consortium. We're advancing the frontiers of research by improving the effectiveness of professionals in RCD positions, their career development visibility, and their ability to deliver services and resources for researchers. There are a number of tracks within the CARC People Network. You're in the Emerging Centers track. There's also the researcher facing, systems facing, data facing, and a new strategy and policy facing track. If you're interested in software specifically, you can check into the US RSE group, which is a related group, but it's not within CARC. There's also a number of working groups within CARC addressing particular projects around professionalization, community development, center development, and cyber infrastructure. And then we have an operations group that coordinates it and keeps people like Jane and me in line and mostly out of trouble. Our People Network is essentially a year-round conference where we present on topics each month with a particular facing, and all of these topics are available on the CARC YouTube channel. Okay, with that formality going, I wanted to go ahead and introduce our panel. We selected a number of panelists from recent CC Star Planning Award winners. I think this group has got some really interesting items. I'm just gonna read off your names and the name of your award, if that's okay, and then if I'll sort of try to air traffic control speakers to get each person in line up, but I would love for you folks to have your time to talk and tell us about your project. So joining us are Dan Stageman from CUNY John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and their award is Undertaking a Process That Will Create a Comprehensive Blueprint for Improving Cyber Infrastructure at John Jay College, CUNY. Anthony Skjellum from University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. CRIA, planning a regional cyber infrastructure research consortium from Middle Tennessee, and Yanyan Zhuang, and I think we have Greg Williams on the call too, from the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs for a UCCS computational cluster for science. We did have Yongning Tang from Illinois State University, but there was some time constraints, and the Yongning was not able to join us. So maybe Daniel, would you like to start us off with an overview of the project at John Jay?
Sure, happy to do that. Again, I'm Daniel Stageman. I'm the Director of Research Operations at John Jay College. I was involved with this grant from the beginning, although I do wonder if I am one of the few social scientists on this call. I am, oh, wonderful. Okay. I'm a criminologist by trade, which I guess makes a little bit of sense given that I'm here representing John Jay College of Criminal Justice. But my technical expertise is probably comparably limited to the other folks on the call, but that is largely okay because the focus of our project was probably a little bit unique for CC Planning Awards, and I will pull up my slides here and give you a quick sense of why that's the case. And I do have sharing privileges, right? I do, of course. If you'll give me just a moment. Okay. And here we are. You'll excuse my looking off here. I'm looking at my second screen where, for me, the presentation appears. So what was unique, I think, about our award is there were really a couple of things. The first is certainly as John Jay College of Criminal Justice, we have what I think may be a somewhat unique justice focus, and really that does not necessarily mean a social sciences focus per se, but it certainly does mean for the purposes of this project that we were acutely aware of ensuring that the social sciences were included, so that what we were undertaking was not simply a technical process, but really a needs assessment that was comprehensive across the college and that included needs within the social sciences and within the humanities as well. Even though that's the case, the large proportion of the folks that made up the committee for the project were indeed computer sciences folks. 5 out of the 6, if you include myself, actually 5 out of the 7, if you include myself and the Dean of Research, Anthony Carpi, who PI'd the award, were in the computer sciences department, faculty in that department. The 5th, sorry, was the director of our Center for Cybercrime Studies and a member of our Security, Fire, and Emergency Management department. So while this work really did originate with our computer sciences department, from the beginning, our intention was to take a really interdisciplinary approach. The second thing I think that may be unique about our process is that we have historically not had strong support for research computing infrastructure from our campus IT department, our campus IT team. And that being the case, one of the real main focuses for us from the beginning was to really present the findings of this needs assessment to college leadership, to the provost, and to the president in such a way that we felt we would have the opportunity to set up some research computing infrastructure in terms of both physical infrastructure, data infrastructure, but also staffing, and have undertaken a process that would make for a really convincing presentation of needs. So the way that we approach this here we are. We approach this by dividing up the team into 5 separate committees, each one led by a member of the project team. And those 5 committees then went out into the college to recruit more faculty, primarily faculty, but in some cases, students and staff as well, to serve on essentially these subcommittees and provide input and review. The 5 committees were hardware, software, I'm just going through these quickly so that you can get a quick look at the committees themselves. Training and professional development, resource management, and finally, this being the most, I think, unique to us, criminal justice applications. Those 5 committees held conversations throughout the year of the award. We received the award in the summer of 2021 and are currently completing our full report. The 5 committees also collaborated with a single overall committee that was led by Dr. Carpy, and we did a few activities that I think are sort of key to the strength of the project. We started out with a survey that was distributed across the faculty and promoted pretty heavily by our Office for the Advancement of Research and by the Provost's office. And we got a really good response rate. And again, that was across departments, looking at a wide range of questions about individual faculty's research computing needs. We then used the results of that survey we presented the results of that survey and a report that we had written on the results of that survey, essentially an interim report, at a public forum in the fall of 2021 that we then recorded and had several experts from elsewhere in on that forum in order to comment on some of the findings from the survey and to make recommendations. And that group of external experts really stuck with us throughout the rest of the project and provided expertise and guidance throughout. So, that was one of the major expenses of the project. The other was really was paying faculty for their time. So, having those experts, having the ability to put on this forum, even in the sort of the end of the pandemic, and having to put that on, virtually, it still was a strong way to present this to the college and really get it on leadership's radar. Once we had the results of both the survey, the forum, and the meetings with external experts, we synthesized this into a report that focused really closely on the 5 subcommittees and the recommendations in each subcommittee, with not only a sense of what we needed in order to really improve the college's research computing infrastructure, but also our expectations of what we felt like this was going to result in for the college, what the return on investment would be, essentially. So, the main audience for this really was the provost and the president. And thus far, we've gotten really good responses from college leadership. And there's now an implementation committee that is putting in effect some of these recommendations. I'm going to go quickly through the recommendations so that you get a sense of what our final assessment was, and then I'll close there. So the hardware committee, we have had no cloud computing infrastructure really at the college, which is fairly inexcusable in the COVID era. Cloud computing has implications not just for faculty research, but also for student access and equity. So the hardware committee's primary recommendation was the installation of an OpenStack cloud computing platform and the longer-term maintenance of that platform, which is going to provide direct access to high-performance computing resources for faculty, researchers, and students. And then the potential for collaborations across institutions. Skipping through to the software committee's recommendations. One other issue that we've had at the college is a lack of central organization for faculty software needs. So we recommended that there be some dedicated and recurring annual funding for primarily research computing software, and this can be anything as straightforward as SAS or SPSS for social scientists. Some of the other packages that we discussed were, Python, Maple and Linux support was another part of this for the computer sciences. And this is going to provide us some economies of scale. At the moment, the Office for the Advancement of Research does fund purchase by individual faculty of software licenses, but it's not efficient for an individual faculty member to have to come to us every time they have a need for a new software license, and for us to simply be purchasing the individual licenses rather than taking advantage of economies of scale is not efficient in the long term. And I should say, as I'm going through these, that all of these recommendations were really very well received by leadership, and it looks like we are going to be able to implement them all. Training and professional development. Here again, we don't have central training or support for research computing, software or hardware. So we really needed here some training in curriculum for some of the key software suites across the disciplines. If you are not providing support to faculty to use the cutting edge software tools in their discipline, that's something that I think any college at this stage in history, of course, should really be thinking carefully about how to address. So, we had recommended that there be some funding and release time alike for some of our faculty experts to distribute that expertise deeper into the faculty. And of course, the main output of this is simply going to be an increased quantity and quality of faculty scholarship across the disciplines. But we also saw this as something that could really result in some modular curricular resources that can be offered as ongoing standalone trainings or incorporated into new and existing undergraduate and graduate course designs. This was the big ask. And again, this was an ask from our leadership. The Resource Management Committee asked that we institutionalize some research computing staffing within academic affairs. And again, this may seem unusual, but the limited support that we've had from our IT department really makes it important that we have some staffing within academic affairs that's overseen by the provost's office that can really focus on research computing needs and not essentially be seconded to other IT needs at the college. We asked for and were at least tentatively promised 2 research computing specialist hires. One who will be an IT specialist who's going to work closely with our Department of Information Technology to manage hardware infrastructure, and another who's going to be really a faculty liaison to focus on software training and support needs. And finally, the way that we approached the Criminal Justice Committee recommendations was simply to look at the college's justice orientation and really sort of sell this to leadership as a way to invest in that part of the college's mission for the 21st century, the rest of the 21st century. And so we do have this standing committee now that is chaired by our Dean of Research to enact these recommendations and to really undertake a full modernization of the college's research computing infrastructure. And I will leave it there.
Okay, great. I'm just going to move us through our speakers and we'll do general questions at the end. So Yanyan, would you be willing to present next?
Yes. Thanks for inviting me, Rich. So I am Yanyan from University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, UCCS. And then our proposal's name is, let me share my screen with you guys. I have 2 slides, so my presentation would be relatively short. I'm not making my slide full screen because I'm planning to also switch back and forth between our project report. So here I have two slides. So our name, the name of our project is UCCS Computational Cluster for Science. If you can tell from the award number, so our proposal was awarded in 2020. So it's been about 2 years. I think we got the award towards the end of 2020. And the reason that we put in this proposal was that up until 2019, UCCS was not ranked at R2 yet. And in 2019, we were fortunate enough to have the R2 ranking. And then as a result of this, we want to have an understanding of the campus's need in terms of computational resource. So we have some high-level plans of this, such as background research and do some surveys and interviews. And then the whole year of 2021, because we got this at the end of 2020. So during 2021, we conducted research, and we have a graduate student assistant to help us analyze some of the results. So basically, this is our plan of our planning grant. And our goal is to understand the campus need, and then to see like which area is the most, how should I say, which area need the most improvement. Therefore, we can write a future proposal and then specifically targeting at that grant. And just to introduce some of our PIs, I am the PI of this proposal, and then our co-PIs are Dr. Terry Bolt and Dr. Jesse Smith. And Dr. Smith is our VP of research. So she's an expert in psychological studies. So as a result of that, she helped us with a lot of our survey design and then interview question designs. So that's the two slides that I have. Now I'm going to switch my screen to our report. I'm not going to get into a lot of the details of this. I recompiled a PDF in LaTeX 2 days ago. Just so you know, it's not finished 2 days ago. And our research assistant is Catherine Hines. And basically, this report is showing two parts of our planning study. One is a survey, another one is an interview. And the survey and interview were both conducted in the spring and summer of 2021. Some of the interview was done in the fall of 21, and then the analysis was done in the following year. So we finished this around summer of last year. I will just give you a very high level results of this report. And by the way, this report is available online. So if any one of you are interested in reading the details, I will have the URL available to you. I can put it in our Google Doc just to show the where you can find this report. So when we're looking into different areas, at the time when we received the award, we had 4 different areas in our CC STAR solicitation. Later, some of these things changed. But during this study, we only have these available in the solicitation. So we asked around and asked for people's opinion. Which area do you think is most needed at UCCS? And which part do you think is needs the most improvement? And here we have the total number of participants of our survey. So the first half of the study is the survey that we send out to mailing lists and then send to some research group mailing lists and ask people to fill in a Qualtrics survey, and then we analyze that. So the first half, we have about 150 people in total, and then we have 77 who completely complete their surveys. And then some of the results that I'm just going to be highlighting is that since this survey is targeted at the general population of UCCS, that includes faculty, staff, and students, these results are representative of the general population, not just the people who need research compute for their research. So the first part of overall results is that people were neither satisfied or unsatisfied. And then some of the other like population specific analysis, such as we divided up into different departments, different schools and colleges, and we have some of the breakdown of those results as well. But overall, we don't see any particular preference of each of these different areas. And some people were like, oh yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with the research compute infrastructure. So this first half, I would say it's from everybody, no matter they care about or they do not care about research compute. And then the second half, we focus specifically on researchers, which include faculty, staff, grad student, postdocs, who specifically do research in terms of machine learning, image processing, and maybe they require large amount of data storage. And then the process of doing these interview is that we went through department website and then look for people's research interests. And then we also did a snowball sampling. So at the end of the interview, we asked the interviewee, so who would you recommend that we should be reaching out for the next interview? So we did interview in this way. And let me see if I can find the, so we have, we contacted 40 people and then 20 people were actually interviewed. And then here's a breakdown of who we interviewed and how many are from these different departments. And surprisingly, so it shouldn't be a surprise if we have to say, if we're interviewing people who specifically do these kind of research, their opinion is going to be very different. And then people are saying there's little to no available computing resources at UCCS. And for someone who is assistant professor in computer science, I do agree with that. And we should require more training and support to use available resources. And then we have a need for dedicated support infrastructure. Basically on our campus, in the past couple of years that I have been working here and then doing research, the way that we get research resource for our project is a little all over the place. So some of the PIs, such as, let me come back to our slide, such as Dr. Bo, he has enough funding from NSF and other sources. So he has some of the resource-rich lab infrastructure set up. So if I have a student who don't have enough resource, what we do is we just reach out to him or some other similar faculty, and then they have to wipe out some of the existing data that can be IRB restricted. And then after we're done with that, they can resume. So that's pretty problematic. And I would say some of these interview results are more interesting. And then from some of these interview results, what we have seen is area number 4 from the old funding area, still talking about 2020 and 2021. Those old funding area from our interview results, we think area number 4 is going to be the most needed. And then the new solicitation that just came out, we do still have this area. So we're thinking March might be a little tight on time, either March or the next deadline, I think it's September or October, we should be able to put together a nicely written proposal based on some of the feedback from people on our campus and with some of the more detailed project layout and then analyzing some of the hardware requirements. We should be able to put together a nicely written proposal. So that's from me. And I have invited, let me stop sharing. I have invited our OIT director, Greg Williams. So in case Greg has anything to add in addition to my presentation, I would give the floor to him. Thanks, Rich.
Hey, good morning, all. So my name is Greg Williams. I'm Director of IT Operations, or some of you may also have a Deputy CIO, same type of role. As Yanyan said, we are an R2 institution. IT is highly centralized here at UCCS, with only the College of Business being the only college that has their own IT. However, all functions of their IT reports basically to central IT. So it's interesting to hear when this planning grant took place, the needs of campus and what people were saying. We do have a new HPC that was funded by an NSF MRI grant, which is mostly computational. There are a number of areas in the report that were identified where we need non-computational areas, so direct instruction, and for other classes as well, not just pure computational research. So it was interesting to find the results and see where we go for the next CC STAR grant, which we identified as area number 4. We do have a large cybersecurity practice here at UCCS. We are the home to the National Cybersecurity Center, and also are the main campus for CU to do cybersecurity. And so some of the new proposal that will be coming out will be focused on cybersecurity instruction and research that the students can use. And that's all I had.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think we've got one more panelist. Anthony, would you like to tell us about your project in Tennessee?
Great. I would very much, and I really appreciate the chance to get to visit with all of you. And by the way, my name is Norwegian, so it's Skjellum, even though it looks like Skjellum or Skjellum or something. So anyway, those of you who are, I'm just so you know, it's kind of fun. Mispronunciations abound. I'm at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and I've been here for about 5.5 years. I'm going to give you a little bit of background and show how this particular project, the CC STAR CRIA planning grant, fits in with the whole totality of our efforts to build research computing. When I came, there was no research computing. We had a great data center, and Tennessee has higher education research centers. UTC has one of those. Our other partner universities that I'll mention in a minute also have those centers, and they're centers that focus on a specific area of excellence. And they're actually a bootstrap for our PhD program from 20 years ago, and the whole effort of making a comprehensive university from a priorly strictly teaching university, which UTC used to be. So when I got here in 2017 as a new director for this research center, we in fact invented research computing with a zero-based budget. And we started working on different ways to support modern HPC. And so I won't talk a lot about our campus in isolation today, except for the fact that there's a whole journey with the CC STAR program, which I'll start with, and I'll show you a little bit about the work that we're doing on the current consortium and why it's helpful. And then hopefully I'll also mention, if I forget at the end, one of our commitments, and this Dr. Thompson has encouraged this as our program manager. I'm also able to share proposals, successful proposals, if anyone's interested. I guess I'll redact the budgets where they have salaries in them, but I'm happy to share any proposals that might be of interest. But we have had a total of 4 CC STAR proposals funded out of 4 requests in the last few years since 2019. And that's been transformative first to our college, first to our whole university, rather than a college, I said the wrong word. And then now working multi-university. So I just will mention, but I'm not going to talk, those are not the projects for today. We won a CC STAR award to build a 100 gigabit campus network, 2 awards to build campus HPC infrastructure, and this planning grant that I'm going to talk about more. So we leveraged our internal investments in the university, our research center, which is about high performance computing, incidentally, to support the entire campus's needs for computing and big data. But it's not all the money's not coming from NSF. We also have our own investments. But it's been strategic and transformative for us to get those awards. So CC Star has helped us really go places since 2017. And we've also found ways to help other universities get started by, like, as I said, sharing the successful proposals and telling what we've learned. And in fact, some of our neighbors have also started getting those awards and now are in a consortium with us, which is the point of my talk today about our planning grant. So I did not make new beautiful PowerPoint for you today, but I have one good figure and I'll tell you analog. So you know what we did, and happy to share the planning grant and the philosophy behind it. But basically, if I may, I'll try to see if my screen sharing works. Forgive me. Let's see if I can get this to work. There's always it's always a trick. Great. So having successfully proposed we built a 2,560 core GPU enabled cluster with 2 CC Star grants. One is still in progress, one finished. The second phase of that is to add GPUs to a cluster. It's now the workhorse cluster of the university. We have a 100 gigabit research network, which is really great because Chattanooga is the gig city. And those of you who don't know Chattanooga, we have the fastest internet in a 700 square mile area of any area on the continent anyway. I don't know about Europe, or Asia, but we have, you can get 100 gigabit or 25 gigabit, sorry, up to your home if you wanted, but 1 gigabit is common. And companies and universities, the university can get 100 gigabit, no problem. So we have this giant, we also have a smart city. So consequently, 100 gigabit internal network was kind of necessary because we were essentially very fast. All the fast networking ended at the edge of campus and we had slow networking. So we've solved that. That was a very big step for us. But on this planning grant, and I'd like to we turned outward. We started talking to our neighbor universities, MTSU, Middle Tennessee, and Tennessee Tech. Both are in slightly different parts of their journey of becoming comprehensive, and I would say ahead of UTC in that area. But we also have strengths and weaknesses. And so we decided to partner in a new way, which was to make this planning grant about regional networking, regional collaboration on CI infrastructure and exchange of faculty, and partnering on building research and basically also eventually a high-speed network. Now, thanks to COVID, which is everyone's excuse for every proposal probably being late or needing a no-cost extension, is that the meetings were not on time and face-to-face as much as we wanted. But essentially, we decided that the 3 universities working together could effectively be a more nationally competitive and interesting group of collaborating computing and R&D institutes. So we would break some barriers with this planning grant. And it's pretty straightforward. If you look at the triangle that's formed by the 3 universities, it's the middle of Tennessee. It's a beautiful area. If you ever drove through there, you would find out 2 things. Some of the most beautiful hills and valleys in the state of Tennessee, 0 cell phone coverage in many areas, 0 economic development, and rural, essentially very rural. In between which, of course, Middle Tennessee is in a relatively moderate-sized city. Tennessee Tech's in a moderately sized city. Chattanooga is about 250,000 people. In between, there's nothing essentially there's loads of opportunity to both people to support our students who come from the region and around the region of Middle Tennessee, but also to build the cyber infrastructure. The state of Tennessee also lacks a REN, or a research network, academic research network like many of the states around us have. And so one of our proposals and one of our efforts, we're still ongoing, even though the consortium's gone on for a while, is to build a high-speed network that connects these universities and junior colleges and HBCUs and so forth that we're starting to learn to know. So this proposal got pretty good reviews in the panel. They told us not to do too much, actually. So we focused, especially thanks to COVID, on our 3 universities and getting people to interact and collaborate, which started by actually writing more proposals for other programs where we use faculty and resources from the respective universities to become nationally competitive, where each one couldn't do it on their own. And this has turned into a pretty good collaboration. But behind the scenes, what we found out in the process is the leader at MTSU, for example, also has a Tennessee Higher Education funded center, and effectively they have 3 of those at Tennessee Tech. And so the people who are already interested in cyber infrastructure came forward, and they're the ones that are most able to collaborate. But we're starting to impact other professors who didn't have any knowledge or interest in this original grant. And we found them through sort of like word of mouth at each university and through some surveying and internal assessment. I'd like to tell you that was very formal, but it was probably pretty informal at each university. But we did actually scour for possible collaborators over time. And I'll give you an example. We're working on a large proposal where each of the 3 universities has something to contribute now, and it's a teaching-oriented proposal rather than a research proposal. And we priorly went after an RET site as the 3 universities. And noticeably, this planning grant is the first ever grant of all 3 universities that have ever gotten together. So this is actually formative. The distances between the 3 universities is pretty close. I think it's about 95 miles from Tennessee Tech to UT Chattanooga, about 140 miles between MTSU and the triangle is roughly accurate. So you get an idea. We're actually geographically close enough to physically collaborate if we needed to, but we're miles apart in terms of siloing like happens in academia. And this grant has forced us or enabled us to break some of those silos. So essentially this is the third of the 4 CC Star grants that we got, because we got another compute grant after this. But what's interesting about it is it's built a lot of momentum for building cyber infrastructure. And I'll just show you, we set some really simple goals, which sound really, and I'm sorry to make you read my proposal. I'll actually send it to you if you want. I'll redact it down to the parts that I can't send. But basically, enhancing research collaborations was our goal, and build this consortium so it would continue and sustain. It doesn't actually need any more money right now. The planning grant has enabled that. A lot of that was for participant costs anyway. And but we're also interested in economic development. That's why we still essentially, quote unquote, owe a proposal follow on to NSF eventually for building a regional network. And in that area, we're being mentored by other CC Star winners in another state who have actually created a wonderful regional network from nothing. And they're going to be they're going to sort of be our mentors. So there's the co-mentoring aspect of this, the co-mentoring aspect of the CC Star program, as Dr. Thompson has encouraged, is really important. And we sort of accepted that because we're also calling on people to help us. And I recently met one person at Supercomputing, and he was doing a supplement, and I helped him write a supplement a little bit. And he helped us understand what we're going to do for when we go after our regional high-speed network proposal down the road, probably 2024. But we're also very interested in broadening participation in computing. And that, I'll tell you, we have good computer science programs in all 3 universities. And we could say computer engineering as well. You can think of electrical engineering as sort of an accreted areas that are similar. But they have lousy broad participation in computing, if you want to say that, because it's really not that broad, right? So we all want to improve there. I'm sorry, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not as far as we need to get in order to be serious about broadening participation in computing. And we're trying that. So this consortium is trying to do that. And one of the ways is that we're doing that is we've started to reach out to other organizations that have a more diverse enrollment than we do at our 3 universities. And that's actually ongoing with our current grant development, where we have the 3 universities named on this planning grant, and they're collaborating now on quantum R&D, both teaching and research related to quantum information science. And we have one HBCU involved, and we have another tier 1 university involved from another state. So it's still a Southeast nexus, but essentially we've got the momentum out of this planning grant. So I don't want to take too much of your time other than to say these things. The planning grant was about outward looking in our case. We'd already sort of done some of the inward facing activities through prior proposals, built our CI plan and so forth. We have a multi-university CI plan out of this. I can't promise you it's up to date at this moment, but we did build it. And in fact, we taught MTSU how to build a CI plan, and they're going after their own CC Star proposals now unilaterally as well as with us. So eventually CC Star will run out of reasons to fund us, and we understand that. We've essentially got to the point where we now have to go back to our higher administration and say, look, we've got where we are, and now we need a sustainability plan for research computing. and I know all of you probably face this. We started with a zero-based budget. Basically, our research center and overhead helps us build research computing plus these grants. The next 5 years will probably involve some really truing up as a university to get access to more resources, both internally and through other leverages we find. But for example, we haven't gone after an MRI lately. That's been, people are going after different instruments, usually in our internal competition. We've been mostly getting through the CC Star, the cluster have come through this program. But we could go after an MRI if there were, a really good reason. But probably we're going to be going after things as a 3 university consortium plus friends moving forward. So maybe it's going to be a small, 6 to 8 university consortia going after high-speed network and other resources that we share from the beginning. Because I think this is much more likely to be, first of all, have a critical mass to be successful. And secondly, it's really helping us to do the kinds of science and engineering that we want to do. And we cannot do it with the size of the faculties we have at each respective university, honestly. And the missions are slightly different, but together we're quite strong. And that's something that's been coming more and more obvious to folks every time we get on a call and try to form a team. We find out that there is more than enough with friends at a couple other universities to form great teams and do great research together. And that's not, that's beyond just writing the proposals. There's also that there seems to be genuine interest. So a sort of capstone to what we did, and I'll finish quickly, I promise. We had early November, we invited everyone we could think of in 2 topic areas. Quantum information science that I mentioned earlier, because Chattanooga is going to have the first commercial quantum loop. Our energy power board has announced that publicly. So we have a quantum loop coming to Chattanooga as an R&D test bed for us. And of course, it's a commercial thing for EPB. So quantum is of interest to the partner universities and beyond. So we're explored that for one day. The other day, we looked at computer security and HPC as sort of blended concepts that we wanted to see who wanted to partner. And from that, a whole bunch of follow-on sort of organic collaborations have formed. But we also met new people at the university, at the respective universities we didn't know just by opening an invitation. Once we opened an invitation to have this consortium funded meeting, both virtually and we were able to do in person again, finally, we actually met new people we didn't know before whom we're now working with actively only 3 months later. So I have to tell you, the planning grant's transformative. It may not be very easy to write a giant report statistically in terms of all the things we did, but the number of anecdotal and actual activities that have come out and continue as sort of a go-to posture from the 3 universities is non-trivial and likely to continue. And in fact, more meetings like the one I described are planned. One, Auburn sort of is agglomerated onto us now. They're not part of the original proposal, but one of the PIs was when he was here. So we're going to have sort of a traveling set of consortium meetings to continue our consortium and continue building on this. And one of the things we'll eventually do is true up and write our large network proposal. But almost the technical network, in other words, the physical multi-gigabit network, is almost less important than the people and CI infrastructure sharing network we built. In other words, the human network is quite strong, even though we don't really have that deep a plan yet for how to wire up a high-speed network between the 3 universities and friends. So I'm saying this planning grant's helped us a lot, and I highly recommend this model, and happy to share anything I can to anyone who's interested in pursuing it further. So thank you.
Okay,
Happy to take questions.
that's great. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. I think these have been really great projects, and there's a lot to take away from this. I wanted to give our folks an opportunity to ask questions. If you've got them, shoot. I've got some canned ones too, and there's some things on my mind that I'd like to ask as well. So please go ahead. If you can either raise your hand and I'll call you out, or if you just want to unmute and ask questions, that'd be great. Okay, I'll go ahead. So one of the things that struck me as really fascinating about all 3 of these projects is that there's really a leveraging of collaborative efforts and to look for people to work within the institution. I think today we saw a real continuum of sort of ways to make the planning process work. I mean, there's sort of research to understand what's going on and what the demand is. There's sort of coming up with plans, and then and even sort of like integrating kind of a larger collaborative framework. So it was serendipitous, but we got some. You guys worked out really well as sort of a range of different activities. I wonder if during the collaborative, looking for collaborators, trying to get buy-in from people to help out with this and get support, if there were things that you ran into that were particularly challenging, if there are strategies that you employed that you thought were really useful.
Can I answer that? I think there's lots of barriers whenever you ask someone for money up front. We just went with this idea that we were going to start with 0 asks internally, except for people's time. So we wrote into our planning grant that our vice presidents or vice chancellors, respectively, of research would at least talk to each other, and they do meet from time to time. So we sort of manage up a little bit. So that's the kind of thing we did ask for. We asked our dean of libraries for a letter of collaboration too. That's in our proposal. But more importantly, was sort of each of us went to our vice president / chancellor of research and told them we were doing this proposal, made sure they said, yay, verily, that's good. And said, by the way, from time to time when you meet up, you should be talking to each other about how to help us leverage this consortium. So I would say asking the C-level suite to pay attention when you go multi-university and make sure they know you're doing it is important. And we keep managing upward, and we got their attention, for example, going after congressional support, for example, as a multi-university group by doing that since this consortium. So I'd say ask for them for their mind share and their help, whether or not you ask them for money when you go after a multi-university planning grant.
I'll just chime in briefly to say that I think sort of managing up was the whole purpose of our process, and it seems to have worked very well. The ongoing challenges for us is simply the need to get some buy-in from our IT department. We look with great envy at all of the other colleges involved in this that have, Greg or other IT professionals who are directly involved in the process. That's the direction that we're heading in. We're really at a very beginning point in the process with this, and while there will be some follow-on funding applications, what our primary purpose was to just unlock some resources that the college already has but need to be better invested in research computing.
And I think I can add a little bit to that, what kind of issues we run into or some of the challenges. So I think at the time of our award, it was the end of 2020 and then 2021. That was the height of the pandemic. It was particularly difficult to get people to respond. So we sent multiple emails, first about our survey, and then the interview was a little bit more challenging because people now have to dedicate an hour of their time talking to us, talking to the student, and answering and talk about their research and whatnot. People are generally excited to talk about their research. However, finding the time is the most difficult issue for us. And as I was pointing out in our report, we reached out to 40 people, and then half of them we got a response from. And we're fortunate to find some of these people that help us identify a specific area to pursue as a future proposal. And then during this process, I also had the opportunity to go to the CC Star workshop, and then during some of those interaction and then talking to people, and involving IT is very, very important. So you may can tell that from our list of PIs. Initially in our planning grant, we didn't have any IT personnel, but for our full proposal that we're going to be submitting this year, IT will have to be playing a huge part in that, because without IT, we basically will not be able to have like assistant professor building the infrastructure. That's not going to be, that will not be possible or practical to do. So that's some of the issues, and then my personal lessons learned. And I'm not sure if Greg has anything to add.
Yeah, I'll add that staffing is always tough when you're working on, even though we have all of IT centralized, it's still a challenge working with researchers for very specific workloads as well. We still need to train a lot. We need to learn a lot. So there's never a shortage of work. So building some of the positions into a grant is ideal at times, or graduate students also helps. But yeah, that's what we run into.
It's a very specific skill set kind of too. It's not just a generic IT role. Gregory,
Yes.
did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Actually, yes, we did attempt to run IT town halls in our institution. And when speaking with researchers, how do you guys keep the conversation focused on the topic? Like, you want a supercomputer center, or you want a cloud computing center, and they will just keep talking about any needs, including teaching, including I don't know, labs and whatnot. I'm curious, how did you guys distill useful information to be used in proposals from the rest of the noise, or whatever you call it?
I think if you guys don't mind me adding some things that I learned. So for the interview, we, like anything that you are going to be interviewing real people, you have to go through IRB. And then we have very specific question that we put in the IRB protocol that we're going to be asking the researchers. And then we say the call is going to be 45 minutes to an hour. And to be on time and be respectful of people's time, we just like have our research assistant just keep on the topic of each of the questions we want to ask. If there's anything after that they want to elaborate on, then we can talk to the researchers individually. So I think having a script of the question that you want to ask from the researchers, instead of just having them like in free talk of whatever, that's going to be able to both save time and then keep the things on topic, not going in 100 different directions.
Yeah, I'll just say we did not do individual interviews, and really most of the input that we got from faculty was in pretty highly structured situations. There were moments, I would say, in some of the open forums where things went a little off the rails, but that's what facilitators are for. So I think it would have been more challenging if we had done some of the face-to-face interviewing, but the way we structured each opportunity for input really minimized that.
I think it was interesting. I think, Daniel, did you pay the external people to help facilitate those conversations or in that evaluation? That seems like really interesting. And that payment, the money came from the grant?
It did, yes. I think I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was a good little amount for consultants.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I had one other, and I know its time is up, and if people need to leave, of course, and I will say, can people reach out to you, all our speakers, if they have questions further after this? So if you everybody's email address is in here, and if you share with Rich, I think had contacted you all originally. If you have any documents you want to share, I know Yanyan, you put a link in the chat, but we'd be happy to just send them out with our community, because but we'd be helpful. But somebody had Amazon gift cards that they gave to their faculty was that you, Yanyan? And was that paid for through the grant?
No.
Okay.
So one of the co-PIs had like some endowed chair funding that has no restrictions.
Okay. I wondered because I was like, that's a great idea, but I didn't know if that was something that would be funded there. So, okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up for this month. I hope you, our speakers, please come back and join our community if you're not already part of it, because I think you all have lots of things to add, and hopefully we can share things with you. And feel free to contact me or Rich if anybody has anything else. And we'll see next month. I will say in February, we're going to move our meeting to, I believe it's January 23rd, but I'll send out an email. We're going to be combining with the EDUCAUSE research computing group. I can't remember what they're called, but to talk about the NIH data management changes for reproducibility and shareability. So one of our steering committee members is on both, and she's going to be speaking, and I believe it's February 23rd, but I'll be sending that out. So it's a different, this is always the second or third week, but it's a little bit different next month, but we will be sending that information out. And thank you everybody for spending some time with us. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Mhm.